So is Killers of the Flower Moon as good as all the critics and reviewers are saying? Stay tuned to the end to find out. After two, some would say, lackluster recent openings with The Irishman and Silence, which left audiences a little bit disjointed and feeling lukewarm towards Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon is definitely a return to form for one of the greatest to ever do this craft. Hi everyone, Nico Lero here from the Silver Screen Dudes, and this is my review for Killers of the Flower Moon. I saw it last night, my instant out of theatre reaction is on the channel now, and there is a lot to unpack with this movie. Now, let's get the elephant in the room out the way first, the runtime. Does this movie feel long given that it clocks in at 3 hours and 26 minutes? Yes and no. I'll say this. The first hour of the movie is quite a slow burn, and you feel the length on it, but it's very much, you know, hindsight 2020 viewing, whereby once you get into the second and third hours and you see where we're going with this group of characters, you realize that despite that first hour being somewhat laborious, it was a necessary evil to make the world properly lived in, to make the characters feel as authentic and organic as possible. So while that first hour, yes, it's a tough watch because you are very much left with the feeling of, okay, Jesus, get to the point, come on. But it's worth it for the payoff at the end. Now, on the note of those characters, people have said that this is a career best performance from Leonardo DiCaprio. It's very hard to say that. It's one of his best. You know, some would say that when he won the Oscar for The Revenant, that probably wasn't the right movie to give it to him to, and it was a bit of a consolation prize. Maybe. Blood Diamond, Wolf of Wall Street, those ones are still, you know, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, those are the ones that still really stand out to me. But this is his most mature performance. He's very much built on the work he did with Tarantino. This is not a likable character, and DiCaprio taps into that unlikability, frankly, with majestic grace. He knows how to keep an audience enthralled with his performance, but also he's now got to the maturity where he's become incredibly purposefully unlikable in this performance. Not unlikable like a Calvin Candy in Django Unchained, where it's like, yeah, you're a terrible person, but you're highly entertaining. You know, you're like cocaine bubblegum. This is not the case. This is a very subdued performance, very subtle, but he is a highly dislikable character, and that dislikability pretty much applies to all of the white people in this movie. Robert De Niro, obviously we must talk about him, this is the finest Robert De Niro has been for years, and I mean that. I can't remember the last truly great Robert De Niro performance. This very much feels like it's overdue, and yeah, I mean, I would put this up there with one of De Niro's best performances. I mean that. And seeing Scorsese's two muses on screen together, DiCaprio and De Niro acting off each other, it was special. You really felt like you were in a position of privilege to watch these two maestros do their thing. Lily Gladstone, I have to mention her. If she's not in the running for Best Supporting Actress or Best Actress, I'm going to be shocked. She was incredible. So the performances in this movie, resounding success. Length in this movie, annoying, but a means to an end. Right, what about the story? Well, I said in my out of theatre reaction that this story made me feel like I needed to have a shower. This really truly depicts the very, very worst of humanity, how greed can corrupt, how racism permeates and can inform that greed. It's a true story, and it's a very uncomfortable story, seeing the very subtle, and in some cases not so subtle, manipulation of the white man on the indigenous people of North America, the Injuns as they're referred to on this, although that's not a politically correct term anymore. The Osage people in this really are laid to waste by the white people, and it's not an obvious KKK like massacre of a race. It's so much worse than that, if anything, because of the subtlety behind it, because of the manipulation behind it, because of the way that they trick the Osage people into believing that they're there to help them, And that proves to be their undoing. It's a really compelling, uncomfortable watch. And Scorsese treads that balance you can't say enough about the direction of this movie. It is such an exercise in both restraint, because there's no big bombastic set pieces in this. You're waiting for it to happen and it doesn't really happen. And the movie, in hindsight, is better for it. It's both an exercise in restraint, but also an exercise in indulgence in the characters and how developed the world is. Speaking of the world, the set design, Jesus Christ, every single frame in this movie, you could smell the money on it. Like, a lot of money has gone into making this movie. I completely understand why so many studios were reluctant to give Scorsese the budget that he wanted for this movie, and that it was Apple Studios, the $1 trillion company, who eventually put the money behind Scorsese to do this. Because this movie isn't going to do gangbuster numbers. It's 3.5 hours. It's not going to be for kids. It's not for families. It's for a very specific audience. And given how expensive the movie was, yeah, it'll break even, maybe make a big profit, but it's not going to do gangbusters. This is not a movie for everyone. If you're a fan of Scorsese, this is for you, though. Negatives, there aren't many, There really aren't many. This is a pretty brilliant, tightly wound movie despite its long runtime. The one thing I will say, and I'm not ruining anything here, there's a final scene in the movie, which I'm not going to go into detail about what it was, and this sounds a bit pretentious and wanky, what I'm about to say, but work with me. Scorsese directly addresses the audience, almost like Shakespeare does at the end of The Tempest, his last play, where he uses Prospero, the main character, as a vessel to speak directly to the audience in the famous "Our revels now are ended" speech. Scorsese goes full Shakespeare in the final minutes of this movie and addresses the audience directly. And despite the fact that this movie is from a time that's not necessarily relevant to us anymore, despite the fact that not necessarily relatable to everyone, thematically, it is relatable to everyone, and it is more relevant now than ever thematically. And the fact that Scorsese makes the bold decision to address the audience, breaking the fourth wall directly, it's so brave to do that when you've brought people into this world, and then just to take them out. I thought it was a stroke of pure genius. So, all in all, what do I think of Killers of the Flower Moon? What final score is this movie getting? Damn. You know what? I can't give it a 10. I can't quite give this movie a 10, but I'm going to score Killers of the Flower Moon 9.5 out of 10. It's flawless in its execution. The performances are god level. The set design is incredible. The sound design is incredible. The story is enthralling. The direction, the balancing of both restraint and indulgence. It's I hate to say this, it's a movie for purists. It's a movie for proper cinephiles. If you're going in here expecting another Goodfellas or, another Wolf of Wall Street, you're going to be disappointed. But if you're a fan of seeing a director at the peak of his powers and then actors at the peak of their powers, all working together in perfect symbiosis, you're going to love this film. So that's my thoughts on Killers of the Flower Moon. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Give this video a like if you haven't already, and please do subscribe to the channel. There should be a prompt to do so up here, and another review for you guys to check out right about here. So do go ahead and check that out, and please, as I said, do subscribe if you haven't already. Help the channel grow, and I will see you guys very soon.